Mary, Mary, you work at, sorry, which company is it?
TalkIQ.
TalkIQ?
Yeah.
Okay. She works at TalkIQ. Actually, Mary and I have known each other for about 4 years or so.
Yeah.
We used to sit together actually at D2L. So we sat side by side. So and then we both went our separate ways, but Mary helps run another group as well, which is
KW Intersections.
KW Intersection. So and Mary has spoken there and a couple other groups around town. So when we had this, I reached out to her and please asked her to come and talk. So please welcome Mary.
Thank you for the introduction. Today I will teach you a bit more about how you can set up Linux VMs in Azure for Ruby development. Some things are different when you want to develop on a VM in the cloud instead of just developing on your computer, and some things you need to think about which tools do you actually still need on your local computer for being able to develop in the cloud. How will you actually set up your VM through the Azure portal? How will you next access your VM? And then finally, when you have everything installed, it's also important to know which costs are actually involved when you're running your VM in the cloud, because you just don't want to throw away money when you're working with when your VM is running when you're not using it. So the first thing that you need to develop an Azure is an Azure account, and either you have an account to your company or you're looking to get some free Azure credits, and there are two good ways to get free Azure credits. The one I prefer the most is the Visual Studio Dev Essentials program that gives you $25 a month for a year, which you actually can play around nicely with it. Another way is just getting a free Azure trial account that gives you $200 for 1 month, but after that month you still need to look for a different way to get some free money. So which tools do you need on your local computer? So you actually just need an SSH client and a key generator, which is, for example, PuttyGen. And so the PuttyGen we actually will use to generate a public and private key pair. When you open PuttyKeygen, you just press here on generate. You will generate a public and private key pair. You just download it, you save it on your computer. Make sure that you remember where you saved your key, otherwise later on you need to make a new one, which is a bit annoying. And next you can go to the Azure portal. Azure portal looks like this. When you have logged in, and next you're selecting virtual machines, which brings you to the start page for the virtual machines. You click add, and we want to install and want to get a Debian VM, so we press Jesse, which will get us the Debian VM. Now we will need to answer 3 sets of questions. The first one is some basic questions. How do you want to call your VM? Which type of disk do you want to have? What's your username? We want to authenticate through a public-private key pair for our VM, so we now can copy-paste the public key that we just generated and put it here in the comment box for the SSH key. Next, we need to choose how much money we are going to spend on the VM. As you can see, you can make some choices about how many cores you want to use, how many gigabytes of RAM you want to use, how many data disks, and the type of data disks. It's also important to know the choices that are being presented to you by Azure are not always the cheapest options. So if you just want to play around with it, sometimes it might be easier. You might get a cheaper VM if you change it to a different region, or if you're just looking around a bit in it. Next, we need to choose some extra options. You can choose whether you want to add an extra disk to it. You next also can choose for a public IP address. You also will need to pay for the public IP address if you're getting one, but that's only a few cents a month, so that's pretty nice. And then you can choose whether it's dynamic or static. And another important thing is, like for the assumption for this tutorial, we're saying, okay, we want to use this VM also to host our website. So what we also want then is like not only SSH access to the VM, but also HTTP access. And this will actually be that you need to add in an extra network security group, adding in the firewall rule, an inbound rule that you actually will allow HTTP access. That's something that you sometimes might overlook, but it's an interesting thing to know. So now we have created our VM. It's up and running in the cloud. So we want to access it now. If you go to the Azure portal, you check your VM again, then you nicely see your IP address over here. We have opened PuTTY, so we can copy paste our IP address here. And next, we also still need to provide our private key. So we select over here, connection, SSH, auth, and here we put our private key pair. And this will allow us to log in this case, as Mary. So we wanted to use Ruby. The goal was to install Ruby for this VM, so just having the standard way for installing Ruby through sudo apt-get install will give you two old version. So therefore you just can Google actually there are some awesome websites available who will give you all the different commands to set up RPenv and then get all the different information to get your Ruby installed. It's a bit boring to present it everything here, but you can just look it up over here. And next, some other interesting things that you would need. Azure has a gem for Ruby, which for example will allow you to access blob storage, which is the cloud storage of Azure. So if you want to play with that in Ruby, you need to install the Azure gem. And then finally, we also wanted to use this VM as a web server. So therefore, we are installing Apache. And yay, now our VM is ready and we can start playing with our VM. But when you have worked with your VM, if you're normally just working locally on your computer, you just leave it there, everything is fine. But you still need to think a bit, when your VM is in the cloud, about the involved costs. So you can look at it as fixed costs and variable costs. Fixed costs are your disks that you have, which are either your operating system disks or your data disks and your public IP address. You can see a bit like with your own computer. You're turning off your computer, you're turning it back on, and you expect that your computer keeps working because nothing has been erased from your disks. This is a similar thing. What you have with the VM in the cloud, you turn it off, you turn it back on again, and you still expect that your stuff is there. So therefore you have the fixed cost, just actually that you're renting space in the cloud. The variable cost is more like when you're running your VM, which is the computing power, which is also a higher cost. So this means just like when your VM is running, you're paying more for it, but if you're turning it off, you're still paying some money for it. And also what means is if you're deleting your VM, sometimes you still might have some ghost costs running around, which you also still need to look for. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope you learned something about setting up VMs in Azure.
Does anybody have any questions for Mary? No? Thank you, Mary.
That was awesome.
It was a neat environment because it created
I feel sorry.